Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are going over the top 5 mistakes you need to stop making in World Warships. These are 5 mistakes that I see plenty of players still make. Players with a few hundred battles on their account, players with thousands of battles on their account, they are commonly still making these mistakes in today's World Warships. So these are mistakes that new players can make, that old players can make. So stick around and see if you are one of these players making one of these mistakes. But before we get into it, about half of you people watching right now, over half in fact, are not subscribed to the channel. Despite returning every single day to watch the daily World Warships video, you aren't subscribed. So why don't you fix that by hitting the subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button as well. The YouTube algorithm really likes seeing those two things happen. And since you're already down there, go ahead and leave a comment as well. Now we've hit the trifecta of appeasing the YouTube algorithm. So now that I'm done begging for that, let's go ahead and get started with number 5. And number 5 is quite simply not knowing your ship. So many players nowadays, they are clearly players that haven't really learned their ship despite having quite a few battles in it. What I mean by knowing your ship, I'm not saying you need to know, every single minute detail about the ship that you are playing, but you should know generally what type of ship is it in its class. Like cruisers, for example. We have light cruisers and we have heavy cruisers. Those are two easy distinctions to make. But then even within the light and heavy cruiser designation, there are different cruisers. Like some cruisers are more there for kiting or flanking or, being a nice little nuisance to destroyers trying to cap the caps. If it has something like radar or a low concealment rate, especially with those two put together. So you'll see players playing, a cruiser that's more about, let's use the Moskva or the Petropavlovsk for an example. Those are cruisers that typically find an island, they get nestled up right on that island, and then they are just a solid thorn in the side of the enemy team, and you gotta really focus on them to get them removed from that spot, and combine that with their radar. They're best played near caps, using island cover to survive for quite a long time. And then you'll see someone trying to, play them like an open water gunboat cruiser, something that the Hindenburg does very well. But the Moskva and the Petropavlovsk don't really do that all that well. The Moskva doesn't do it that well because it has a exposed citadel on the side. The Petropavlovsk doesn't really do it that well because, well, it's not exactly maneuverable, neither is the Moskva, but you guys get what I'm saying. They're playing the ship in the completely wrong manner. Now, it's one thing, of course, if, the match degrades to the point where you're forced to play the ship in that matter, but you see plenty of players doing this, earlier in the match, playing their ship just wrong. I mean, think about it. How many times have you seen a destroyer or a cruiser, even a battleship armed with deep-water torpedoes try to torpedo a destroyer? It's quite a lot, isn't it? So these are things that you need to be aware of when you are either grinding a ship or buying a premium ship. Now, again, I'm not saying you need to go on like the ship tool website and memorize every single stat about the ship, but you should at least maybe look up a video online or look at something on, well, I was going to say the forum, but they don't exist anymore, but like on the Discord or on the community forum, DevStrike, just find something about this ship, read a little bit about it, and understand what you're getting yourself into. Because you very well may find that, you thought these ships looked neat, but now that you're, starting to go up the line, or even before you start to go up the line, if you start reading about the ships, you might realize, oh, I don't really want to play British battleships because I don't like HE spamming in battleships. That's not really appealing to me, right? So you can learn beforehand and make an informed decision beforehand about what ship line you want to grind and or learn how to play it a little bit better. And trust me, by doing that, by doing a little bit of research into the ship that you're looking at playing or that you are playing, you will be better off than a large portion of the player base. So know your ship, know how it's meant to be played, know its armor scheme, know its consumables, know how they work, know what commander build you should have on and all that jazz. And again, just doing that little bit of research will help you out tremendously. So alright, going on down to number 4, we have limiting yourself to one class. This is another very common thing. I did this too for the first couple of years of playing this game. I only played battleships. That was it. Why? I thought battleships were cool. They have a ton of armor. They have a big ol' HP bar. They have massive guns. And they have the ability to just, one-tap cruisers and lesser battleships out of existence, right, with their large guns. That's all I played for the first 2 years of playing this game. I didn't touch a cruiser. I didn't touch a destroyer. I didn't touch a carrier. Submarines weren't a thing yet, so I couldn't touch them. That's all that I played, which of course led to me having a very battleship-minded view of the game. And I was getting frustrated at trying to deal with torpedo destroyers and light cruisers because, per my worldview, they were, this incredibly unbalanced class of ships. The torpedo destroyers, you don't even know where they're at, and then here comes a wall of torpedoes at you. The HE spamming light cruisers, they're hiding behind an island and just farming you down for minutes on end. There's nothing you can do about it. So I had a very limited view of the game, which of course led to me not really knowing how to deal with those ships. Eventually, I finally gave in and I started playing, cruisers and touching a destroyer every now and then to get an idea of, how those ships play. And by doing so, by learning how to play those ships, I then learned how to counter them, because you figure out what doesn't work when you play a ship for the first time. You figure that out quite fast. And if you need a hint to know what doesn't work in those ships, it's typically whatever you did to get yourself back to port, right? So like light cruisers, positioning is everything in light cruisers, right? Finding that island you can hide behind to launch your shells over, trying to get in range in the first place, right? And get in a good spot. Or if you have a smoke cruiser, knowing, where's a good place to smoke up at, you shouldn't be sitting still in smoke, this, that, and the other. So by playing those other classes, you understand how they play, then you further understand how to counter them. It makes you a much better player overall by becoming a more well-rounded player. And yes, you even should play those forbidden classes, right? Submarines and CVs. Not saying you got to become a CV main, not saying you got to become a sub main, but guess what? Those classes have wildly different mechanics from the rest of the classes in game, and it is a lot to learn by, not playing them. Yeah, you can watch streams and videos and such and get an idea, but playing and getting hands-on experience with those classes will lead you to have a better understanding of how those classes operate and thusly how to counter them, because, you're going to see what does and doesn't work playing those classes, just like playing, the 3 normal classes in game. So if you limit yourself to one class, you're limiting the experience you're getting in the game. You're limiting, your ability to become a more well-rounded individual. And World of Warships is not a hard game to pick up another class in. It's very simple. Let's say you're grinding up, I don't know, the Japanese battleship line. Well, take a break from playing the friggin' Congo. I know the Congo is a good ship, but I mean, look, if you've been playing the Congo for the past 5 or 6 matches, take a break, play, pick up a destroyer line, a cruiser line, even play the Japanese heavier light cruiser line while you're grinding up the Japanese battleship line. Just pick another class to grind on the side to, get some experience in and understand how these ships play, where they're going to go, what they're going to look for, so forth and so on. And especially by playing destroyers. Once you play enough torpedo destroyers, even myself, you know what to look out for. You can get an idea of, okay, that gap between that island there, that's where the destroyer is going to go. He's definitely going to launch torpedoes that way, or he's for sure going to go down this flank and launch torpedoes this way, because this is where everybody always goes in the start of the match, and it's a great spot to try, grab a couple of torpedo hits early game. You learn those things by playing the destroyer, right? So don't limit yourself to one class, broaden your horizons. Again, I'm not saying you have to become a master of, a class you absolutely despise, but play it to get an idea of how to counter it. Alright, going on down to number 3, we have our good old friend, tunnel vision. Do not get tunnel vision, or stop getting tunnel vision. So tunnel vision is something that it's hilarious how many players have it in World of Warships. And if you want to get an idea of how bad tunnel vision is in this game, go back. Doesn't have to be in my videos, but somewhere else on the YouTube verse or on some older Twitch clips. Look at some clips or some videos when Paulo Emilio first came out. Man, some players, and still today a lot of players too, they are so stuck down their sight, trying to stare at some target off in the distance, that they're not checking their surroundings. And you can literally walk up to these ships in Paulo Emilio and just dump torpedoes into their side from 2.1 kilometers away. They never knew you were there. Why? Because they're not popping out of their sniper view. They're not looking around. They're not checking their surroundings, so forth and so on, because they're so stuck on that target off in the distance. I see battleships do this. I see cruisers do this. Destroyers a little less so, because obviously destroyers are more short-ranged ships all in all. Seaweeds, of course, too. You know, how many times does your Seaweed just leave the Seaweed parked there in the back of the map? Doesn't even bother moving it because they're too busy flying the plane. So it's, of course, a problem that everyone experiences, or I should say every class experiences. So how do you avoid this? It's pretty simple. You know, take your shot, back out of your sniper view, look left, look right, check your mini-map, and then you can go ahead and go back into your sniper view for a couple of seconds and rinse, wash, and repeat, just like driving a car. You check your 2 side mirrors, you check your rear view mirror, and then you go back to looking at the road in front of you. Just do this every, 10, 15 seconds. World of Warships isn't exactly an overly fast-paced game, but it's something that you still definitely need to do, because too many players depend upon that yellow exclamation point popping up. And it's really surprising, given the amount of things like exhaust smoke generators that are in the game today, and like the curtain smoke that the support series can drop out, that players still really haven't adapted overly well to this idea of, not just staring down your ADS view for the entire match trying to, hit that target in the back. And I know you Battleship players out there are really bad at this, because I was really bad about this for quite some time. It's why now, anytime you watch me play a Battleship, I'm always, I'll shoot, I'll look left, I'll look right, then I'll go back to, trying to see where my shells are going to land on the enemy ship, and I'll do that again, every few seconds, just to, not eat a wall of torpedoes or not get bum rushed by a destroyer or something like that. You will be surprised how many players do ignore the 60-knot smoke screen of the Paulo Emilio, or the, battleship-sized smoke screen of some of the Italian battleships. Everyone's far too reliant upon that little yellow exclamation point popping up. So don't get tunnel vision. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to what's going on your flank. I mean, if nothing else, just to make sure that, hey, is my flank collapsing yet? To make sure you can get out of there in time. Because, I mean, that's even happened to me nowadays. I'll be really focused on something going on, weighing the back of the flank that I'm currently on. Then I'll look back down, I'll be like, oh, wow, like half of our team's dead on this flank. Better get out of here, right? So, especially with how fast that can happen nowadays, don't get tunnel vision. Check your map, check your surroundings, and make sure that you are, well, where you should be. All right, going on our way down now to number 2. We have a real big one, and that is being downright obsessed with damage. Stop that. Stop that, stop that, stop that, stop that. Damage is cool, don't get me wrong. Doing damage, very cool. But when you get so stuck on damage is everything, and you just farm all game, that's a problem. I'm going to tell you a secret here. Damage doesn't win matches. It just doesn't. What does win matches? Getting caps. That wins matches. And sure, getting kills, that wins matches too, don't get me wrong. But securing a kill versus just farming damage for half the game, those are two very different things. Now, obviously, you gotta do damage in the game. I'm not saying, you should be some pacifist that never shoots his guns or fires torpedoes or anything like that. But don't get stuck with that farming mentality in randoms. There's certainly a place for it. Later in the match, when there's only a handful of ships left alive on the enemy team, and you're, chasing down, one of the last 3 ships, you got, 6 ships still left alive, and it's a battleship. Oh yeah, by all means, please, farm to your little heart's content. You've earned it at that point. But getting stuck with that mentality early game is most terrible. I can't begin to, imagine how many times I've seen the following scenario happens. The match has started. It's the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. You get first contact with the enemy team. Your destroyers are in the cap. So are the enemy team's destroyers. But behind the enemy team's destroyers, there are some nice, juicy battleships that are spotting. What does over half of the friendly team do? Instead of shoot the destroyer that your destroyer is risking his life to spot, they shoot the battleship. Why? Battleship's a massive, slow-moving target. Lots of HP, great damage income, great farm right there. Sure, you can do that. You may even sink that battleship. But I'll tell you what, with all those shells you flung at that battleship and the however long, he's either spotted for, or however long, let's say just a minute or so. Let's say, he gets briefly spotted and he manages to disengage. With all those shells you just flung that battleship for that 1 minute, The enemy destroyer that has probably killed your destroyer because instead of, shooting him, you shot the battleship instead, you could have killed the enemy destroyer and at least done one of two things. Secure the trade, trading your friendly destroyer for that enemy destroyer, or the better and very likely scenario would be that enemy destroyer would now be sunk and your friendly destroyer would be alive, which now gives you a tremendous tactical advantage on your flank. Because destroyers, quite simply, are the single most impactful class in game, bar none. Except maybe the most unicum of CVs nowadays. But in terms of the classes overall, and speaking in general terms, destroyers are the most impactful ships in the game, and you need to keep yours alive. And a good way to do that is don't get, that damage mentality that, there's a battleship with 100,000 HP. I can farm him down, but don't do it at the cost of letting that, enemy destroyer walk away, or enemy cruisers too. Cruisers, most battleship players will thankfully shoot at cruisers because, lighter armor, easy damage income and such. But, again, in the same scenario, a lot of times too, they'll shoot past an enemy cruiser to farm down the battleship, and it'll be a cruiser that's actively trying to murder your destroyer too. And that's why, if you look at competitive teams and such, it's a real common thread that someone will have, these amazing stats. They have, an average damage through the roof, and they have good stats because of that. Well, most competitive teams really won't take that person because there's a very good chance that person's just a farmer. And we've had that happen beforehand, where we took someone into our clan battles team. We went to clan battles, and the guy had such a farming mentality that instead of listening to the calls that the caller was making and doing this and that to win the match, he went off and he decided to farm one of the battleships in the match for a majority of the game, which did not help us win at all. And he went on to do this several times throughout the season, which is why he's no longer on our clan battles team anymore. That doesn't win matches. Securing kills, supporting destroyers, securing the caps, that wins matches. So don't get stuck trying to, farm down that one battleship, because in a lot of cases too, that's exactly what that battleship player wants you to do. Wants you to, focus on him, to try to farm him down while his team, gets in there and does what they need to do and, wins the match, right? So don't get stuck with that damage mentality. Damage is important, yes, but it's not everything, right? Securing kills, securing the caps, supporting your destroyers, that's what's important. Speaking of that, our number one point is not supporting destroyers. I kind of touched on that a good bit there in our number two point as well. But yes, like I just said, destroyers are the single most important class in the game. Don't believe me, just observe as you're playing the game throughout this week. I promise you, in 8 or 9 out of 10 of the matches that you have, where one team's destroyers survive the opening 5 minutes, that team is going to win the game. It's that simple. In a game like Warships, where you have the spotting mechanics that we do have, destroyers are the vision for the friendly team. And as the old saying goes, I cannot shoot what I cannot see. If all your destroyers are sunk and the enemy destroyers are not sunk, then guess what? That team has the vision advantage. Their team can see you. You can't see them until they fire. And then again, they're only visible for 20 seconds. And there they go. So they can take their time, line up their shots, pick and choose their targets. You can't. On top of that, on top of just the spotting, of course, too, destroyers, caps, the big things that tend to win matches. And they act as anti-destroyer support for your team, meaning that, of course, if there's 2 destroyers on the flank, they're kind of mirroring each other. Those destroyers will be a little bit more hesitant to push forward and charge. So, your destroyer will kind of keep the enemy team's destroyer in check as long as they are alive, right? Can't do that if they're dead. Destroyer depth charges are, of course, the best depth charges for dealing with submarines as well. And, of course, with a 3-kilometer arming range now of torpedoes, destroyers are that much more scary to submarines as well. So they're an overly important class, almost to a fault, and I could definitely see how someone could argue that way too much importance has been placed upon the destroyer class in Warships, but hey, it's what it is, it's how the game works, and it is something that you definitely need to stop not doing. You need to support your destroyers, because keep the destroyers alive, keep the vision advantage, keep the capping ability alive, win the matches. And hey, big damage number at the end of the game, kind of going back to number 2, that's cool and all, but winning the match, that's cooler. I mean, really, too, like destroyers, too. I mean, you can play a destroyer and you can do like completely mediocre damage, but if you're spotting and if you're capping, you're going to be number one in the team every time. I mean, you just look at the background footage too. I just focus here on spotting and capping. Easy money in destroyers as well, because it is that important. It's why it's rewarded that well in the economy. So support your destroyers, sink the enemy destroyers, sink the enemy cruisers that are trying to murder your destroyers, rinse, wash, and repeat, win games. So guys, those are my top 5 mistakes you need to stop making with warships. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What other tips or what other mistakes do you see players making that you'd like to share with the class down below? Let us know all that jazz in the comment section. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Monday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.